Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think
Podcast,
Podcast.
baby.
Enjoy the show. So on the guy's side, he's the passive guy, probably because he grew up with an overbearing mom of some kind, or maybe even a mom who just was like inattentive or whatever, sort of neglectful. So he's got like a sort of a shame response, and probably he's bad with his emotions. He gets flooded, and then he shuts down, either withdraws, or maybe he pacifies. He says, sure, yeah, I'll do that, but then he has like no intention of doing it, or just doesn't, forgets it because he pacifies, right? And so his issue is like he's got to step up and step into like doing some of these things, which is the risk for him, right? Which the slow part I was talking about at the end of the last episode is he's got shame he's got to work through. He can't get flooded by that anymore.
I think there's another version that's in my head a little bit, which is why. So the other version is kid grows up. It's not that his mom or dad are necessarily overbearing, it's that they're neglectful. So
Both, yeah.
So what ends up happening is he never actually is certain. So he's competent and he does stuff, but he doesn't have the certainty. So as soon as she comes on with certainty, he just defers. And he just defers, because, well, I mean, he's going to be neglected either. Like, the easiest way to not get neglected is just to obey. Because of whatever. Because I'm going to get rejected or unaccepted the other way.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep, that's good. All right, should we jump in?
Yeah. Jump.
Starting at this time. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We are excited to be back with you.
And we're bald still. Just thought I'd share.
In case you needed to know, I'm sure all of you
YouTube
listeners were curious about that. We are doing a part 2 of this series today that is a follow-up to the last one, because we presented this idea, this situation of a really common dynamic out there in marriages where you have an unsupported wife and a passive husband, and the dynamic in their family becomes this, he's withdrawing, maybe not doing some of the things that he needs to be doing to contribute to the family. And so then she pursues and tries to get him to help or do more things. And he, in turn, either tries and fails, doesn't do it right, or he just doesn't even try at all. And so he kind of shuts down and withdraws more. And so then she becomes overbearing or becomes more controlling or more assertive or whatever. And he just shuts down more and more. And voila, here we are sitting in the therapy room on our couch telling the story to two bald therapists.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time. So in the first episode, we were talking about the dynamics themselves and focused more specifically on the lady's side and what she might be going through and how she's seeing things and what she might need to do. So if you haven't listened to that, go back. That's the first part of this series. That's going to be critical, I think, before you listen to this one. Today, we're going to be talking about the guy's side. Now, I said in a previous episode, and we were talking off camera, or well, before we started recording this episode, on camera for YouTube. If you have not tuned in, go to our YouTube, because you're missing out. You're gonna hear and see so many things that you didn't know you needed to see and hear. But we were talking about on the guy's side. He's often a guy who's very competent. He's capable. He's probably very smart. He's well respected. He's liked. He's probably a really nice guy. Has a lot of friends, or gets along with all the people, right? So in a certain sense, you think like, this guy's fantastic. But then when it comes to like doing some of these tasks around the home or contributing to the family, he seems kind of checked out, or he doesn't contribute very much. He can do so many things at work, or he's got all these other hobbies and activities that he's engaged in, but he's not the same when he's at home. What's going on? And so oftentimes it can be he grew up as a young boy with overbearing parents, typically an overbearing mother, and he felt criticized or controlled, and so he really had to like just obey and do all the things to a T in order to sort of please her so that she wouldn't get upset. Or there might have been another dynamic where he was neglected, where and Nathan, you were kind
I
of
would,
describing this well.
I would say, yeah, I would just say that it's a different flavor of the exact same thing. I mean, the overbearing mom is neglectful. What's happening in that dynamic is that young boy does not know how to have his own volition. He essentially can't. It doesn't matter what he thinks. It doesn't matter what his choices are. It's just, sorry, bro. And, you're going to do it mom's way, right? So he is neglected in what he thinks and feels because it does not matter. And he learns that growing up, right? So he learns to kind of like just do what he needs to do, not draw a lot of attention. And if nobody, and he'll assert himself in situations where, like might be with friends or whatever, because it seems okay and nobody's giving him the wrong feedback. But if some friend actually comes back on him kind of more harsh, he will back down in a heartbeat. He's not gonna stand up because he's pursuing acceptance. Ultimately, he's trying to get accepted. So,
and in a certain sense, he also doesn't want to rock the boat, because if he rocks the boat, he probably has had some experiences where, if that happens, if there's some sort of conflict or rub with the other person, disagreement or difference, that results in something relationally that's negative or bad for him.
Right. So in relationship to that, as he's growing up and as he's connecting with this lady who he finds or whatever, he's very service oriented, right? So she loves that. She loves that seems to care for her. He's connected. He notices things about her, and she's like, oh my gosh, you notice more than anybody else, mama, you're so wonderful, you read my mind, which just makes all the other guys hacked off because yep, he's a mind reader. Anyways, but the problem is that whenever as more tasks, more connection goes down, he's at more and more risk over the course of and the more connected that he is, the more in danger that he is. And his expectation is he's going to get neglected. He doesn't share his feelings because ultimately they're not going to matter. He doesn't even know how, actually. So, and that's where, the lady's going to be mad, right? Because the lady's going to be like, well, why aren't you more vulnerable? Why don't you share your feelings? That's the kind of stuff that he's been hearing. Maybe she's been saying over the course of the marriage or whatever. That kind of just slowly goes into the background. Because he doesn't know how to share and he's not going to share. And
probably, I would say this, if initially he did share, he would see that she's probably receptive. He would see that she's probably open, she's welcoming, she's receptive to that stuff because she wants to know him so that she can draw close to him. But the problem is, if he doesn't do that over and over and over and over again over time, then this frustration builds on her side where doesn't know him and wants to know him, and so then when he finally does share something, it might be like, oh my god, where was this? I've been looking for this. She might have more of a reaction than she would have earlier on, and to him, all that noticing and mind reading and stuff does not come in handy. It actually works against him because now he's like, oh no, she's upset. I knew I shouldn't have shared my feelings.
Right. Yeah. He'll take it more like there's some kind of way that he failed. Essentially, because as people, we will have a tendency to get more protective when we get hurt, and so we'll find where the danger is. It's like, oh, that looks great, except for, do you see that person in the shadows? Well, I was just going to go and get in my car. I think there's a person over there, but my car's not anywhere near that. If there was a person, it doesn't matter. What some people you get tuned into that, right? So
yeah, and the deeper you get into intimacy with somebody else, the more risk you are, the more at risk you are, and the more likely you are to self-protect, which is the opposite of what needs to happen in order for you to deepen your intimacy, right? You got to remove those protectors and allow yourself to be vulnerable so that you can deepen the intimacy, strengthen the trust, and grow closer to one another and see that, oh, it's actually okay.
Yeah, and the intensity that oftentimes the lady has in trying to get at the emotional connection is all experienced as intimidation and overbearance from before, right? So it won't go anywhere. It's just a big huge cycle. So what he does is continues to disconnect and then just focus on what he knows, which is do the task, do whatever the things are, which then proves, yep, you're detached. It says, you're not going to support me ever, are you? And he's like, what are you talking about? I am supporting you. I did 57 tasks that you put on my list today. Yep, no, it's not supportive. What? What do you mean it's not supportive? Right, so here we go.
And that right there, if we put that now, him back into the context of the situation that we were talking about with this marriage and this family, you know, she now, to him, has become this critical wife that he did the thing and it wasn't good enough.
Boom shakalaka.
And that just activates his, like, shame. He gets flooded. He's like, because from his perspective, right, he's thinking, well, I'm doing these things in service of you and the kids or the family or whatever. And so it's like coming from a good place. And so I'm bringing this offering and it's completely rejected, right? So then he feels rejected. And he feels like, well, what's the point? If I do any of the things, you're not going to accept it. It's not going to be, you know, pleasing or meet your standards. Or worse, it might be like it wasn't done good enough or in the right way. So not only is it rejected, but it's also scorned.
Right. And so, and oftentimes the lady is getting so resentful and angry about the whole thing that she can get naggy and nitpicky about it. Right, which then does the whole perfectionistic thing. So if he does exactly what she wants, like say 8 times, she's only going to tell him. She'll tell him about the one time that he didn't, and she'll focus on the one time that he didn't, and he'll be like, I don't need to do this at all. I just did this for 8 times, and I'm never gonna be good enough. Blah blah blah. I'm out. You know, I'm not even going to do what you're talking about because you can't even see it, and it's all about the trade and the frustration. So. On the guy's side, I think we need to switch to what he needs to do.
Correct. Well, and let's talk about just really briefly, if you're the guy and you're hearing this and this resonates with you, everything that we're saying is actually a lens through which you're seeing and hearing things. It's not the actual reality, right? She's not telling you you're not good enough, you haven't done it good enough. There's something else that's going on that you can't see because what you are actually, first of all, experiencing is a flood of shame and fear, probably one, the other, or some mix of the two, that who you are, what you've done is not acceptable, or if I do this, I'm going to be rejected or not accepted. Those are all beliefs that you carry from your upbringing, and feelings that you're holding inside of you that have not been resolved, that are then coloring the interpretation of all the events and resulting in you acting, behaving, communicating certain ways that are not helpful.
Right. And the other thing of it is that you're not wrong about the fact that she's frustrated. You're not wrong about the fact that she's picking on like 1 or 2 things when you've done 25 things right. You're right.
It just doesn't mean what you think it means. Just because she's frustrated doesn't mean the whole world is going to end, the sky is falling.
And what will definitely not work is if you say to her, you just need to do these things different, whatever it is. Because what you're saying to her is, I'm not going to continue to support you. The end. Because it's just putting more tasks on whatever she thinks she's already doing, right? Women have a tendency when you see things laying around the room, and they'll talk about how it's disorganized or whatever, and they want to put stuff away. Those things laying around the room are responsibilities to the lady. They're not just like items that are on a shelf, like, oh, that's over there. Like, that's something that they now are responsible to do. So if you say whatever you're going to say and giving them feedback about how they can treat you nicely and different, it's just one more responsibility and one more way that you're not being supportive.
On top of what you're already not doing in the conversation while we're talking about, you didn't do this thing that I asked you to do. Oh, wait, so you're saying now it's me that I need to do more? Hold on a second.
I have 40 more things that I was going to do, and then I'll be right back to listen to the rest of what you were telling me to do.
Right. So, okay, what does the guy need to do?
Okay, so first it's understanding what Aaron already said. There's a process of acceptance. You have to accept you're wrong. You're seeing it wrong. But that's actually good news.
Correct.
Because what that means is you have no reason to be ashamed.
You can be released from that. It's like we're relieving you of the burden, the weight, the fear of all that stuff that you're carrying. Gone. Unclip. Bye.
The other piece is, when inside that acceptance, is you get to accept that she's not on a mission to neglect you. She's not doing that. She's not figuring out ways to like make sure that she's not there for you.
Yeah, she's not over there thinking like, how can I get him to fail? Today I will put this on him.
I think like, yeah, the task of sitting there like, things to do today. Make sure my husband doesn't get anything he needs. And, oh, what else? Yeah. And take a dump in the bed where he sleeps.
Make him feel horrible.
Right.
Like, that's going to make her own life worse. Why would she, out of her own self-preservation, why would she do that? She's not. She actually wants this to succeed. She wants you to succeed. She wants to be closer to you.
And here's the thing. I know you may be skeptical, honestly. And the reason why is because there's been a lot of buildup. If you're hearing this, there's a lot of buildup. And she honestly, you could tell me things like, she doesn't care, dude. She really doesn't care. Like, she's already neglecting me, bro. Like, it's already happening. Okay, but that is not her goal. She's overloaded, and all she has left is what you are currently experiencing. So your pathway back is to accept that's actually not the correct reality.
And if you accept that, you actually are opening the door to a new potential that has not yet existed in your relationship, that you cannot currently see. So she might be functioning with the only cards that she's got left, because that's what you've been kind of dealing out. But if you're accepting this, like Nathan is saying, you're opening the door to new possibilities and introducing new cards into the equation so that a new hand can be created between the two of you.
Right. And that the thing I mentioned a little bit in the last episode with the roles, men, you guys have a tendency to be able to see vision, right? So what's happening is you haven't been looking far enough. What you've been looking directly at is your own potential neglect. And that's it. That's as far as you go.
You've been looking at your feet. That's what you've been seeing. Your eyes need to be up and out.
You've got to be looking past all of this. So,
which also means, and I think this is really key. I really like this vision thing, because not only is it using this metaphor of like your eyes actually looking up, but you need to see beyond your own shame or neglect or whatever, and then moving past that, you need to see beyond her initial frustration or anger, resentment or whatever. Again, see past that to, she actually does not want to feel that way. She does not want to be here any more than you do. She wants this to be better and to be resolved just like you do. So if your vision can be high enough and far enough, you can see past all the immediate, like emotional or conflictual stuff that's happening to a better outcome.
And so the next piece, when you accept it, you got to deal with it. And that it is your shame. It's you, buddy.
You are the biggest problem in your own life.
And you can get a shirt from shrinkthink.com/swag.
In fact, you should. So that means if you're dealing with your own shame, you've got kind of three basic things you gotta attack. You've got to change, right? It's kind of like you got surgery, you've got PT, and you've got, I don't know, change your lifestyle afterward.
Dentistry. Just kidding.
No.
You're like,
nowhere
what?
in the equation. So if it's those three things, the first one is like you have beliefs. There are things that you believe about yourself, other people in the world, that are not true, that were encoded in your childhood that need to change. You need to find and challenge those beliefs and get those out of there. It's like you need to have surgery on the thing that's causing the infection in your body. And then two, you've got all these like emotions that are happening that you don't know how to manage. You're feeling certain things in your body. Your body has these sensations that are really uncomfortable, that you feel flooded by, overwhelmed by. You don't understand what's happening. You got to figure that out. You got to get connected with your body, and that's like the PT. You got to learn how to tolerate the distress and the discomfort of what's happening inside of your own body, so that you're not believing those old beliefs and shutting down like you used to. And then lastly, the third thing is you got to do some things differently. You got to communicate differently, step into things that you're not stepping into, take risks by sharing things that you weren't previously sharing. And that's like changing some of the lifestyle things, some of my like sleep, diet, exercise things in this analogy. And if you can find and attack those three things, And it's a big task, right? That's not going to change overnight. And I say that because women often are just looking at guys as like, well, just admit you're wrong. Like, why is that so hard for you? Just admit, like, oh yeah, I didn't do that. I need to work on it. Or I'll do that next time. Why is that so hard for you to say? Or why can't you just step up and do the things? It's not as easy if a guy has all of this shame that he's got to deal with.
Right. And so part of that, to get one more specific before we close out, the action that you take when you're dealing with the shame is to expect, and this is hard, you have to intentionally do this, expect that you deserve acceptance. You just have to expect it. You deserve it. So you talk like that. You become less passive and more assertive. You expect to be heard. And you're respectful, but you expect that you're going to be heard. You're responsible to her. You're not responsible for her. You're trying to make her from a distance do exactly what you want through subtle manipulation and passivity. And it has not worked. So you have failed at that. It won't work. It's over.
That's also, when you talked about the acceptance thing, when you can accept this, it's actually a huge relief because you already know where all this passivity and this like manipulation thing, you already know where it leads. It doesn't work, right? It actually creates more shame, feels worse. So we're actually releasing you from that. Like, you no longer have to go down that path anymore.
Yeah, and it, unfortunately, and the truth is, it is your path. I mean, she can't actually fix that path, bro. Like, it can't happen. So it is because she was not on it. You met her way after you had already been on that sucker for a long time. So you have to go back and figure out why you packed your bag the way you did and dump crap out of there.
Or if somebody else packed that bag for you, unpack it from their stuff and pack your own stuff, right? What do you want to have in your bags? Like acceptance, good enough, worthy, all that kind of stuff. Pack your own stuff in those suitcases and carry that with you instead.
And with that, have a great day. I totally forgot that I had a meeting with Ben.
Oh, right now?
At 10, yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, that's what he called it.